You guys taking this Big Ten Media Days on every year are more accustomed to this. I haven't been in that setting for about 20 years, aside from American Conference Media Days, and that's a whole different deal. I was more assessing, in addition to what they had to say, was just the presentation. So on one end of the scale, you've got Matt Rule, who will tell you anything. He's just gabbing constantly, tells you things you don't want to know. And I say that in a positive light. I found him extremely entertaining and transparent. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I don't know what to always to make of Jim Harbaugh. And when I got on here at the Open and said that he's the worst communicator in the Big Ten among coaches, that's of course just my opinion. He's a very smart guy. He's a great coach. But just these 8-second delays after every question, and then he basically says, if they're talking about JJ McCarthy, he's good, really like what he's doing, right? His teammates love him. Every answer is the same, and I just don't get a whole lot out of that. Ryan Day somewhere in the middle, like he is coach speak, but he explains things. He's not going to say anything that's controversial or ruffle any feathers or be too transparent, give you too much information, but he explains. He's thoughtful and gives you an explanation. Just my take on the coach's approach. And PJ Fleck always entertains me, and I know Kevin can't stand PJ Fleck. But
I mean, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but god dang, he is exhausting to watch. And during his presser at the main podium, I was like, all right, when's somebody going to ask? And you generally don't want to come out question one, because then you might cause the coach to shut down for the remainder of it. But we got the softballs, and finally somebody went at it. And as Tony had said, he was well drilled. He went through all of his points and everything else and talked about the misnomer of the Fleck Bank and some things like that. But yeah, with Ryan, Ryan is a little bit different of a communicator than his predecessors at Ohio State. I mean, Urban was brutally honest at times. I mean, he would hold things back that he didn't want to talk about, but he would come right out. This room's a clown show, those types of things. And then you, of course, the great Jim Tressel, and from one of the documentaries about, you could ask him the time and he would tell you how to build a clock, but he would never tell you what time it was. I think that was all very true as well. And then you got Ryan Day, who's kind of somewhere in the middle. He has his things that he doesn't like to talk about, injuries being one of them. But I think in that type of setting, like a Big Ten Media Days, where you get 45 minutes with him, if you get the opportunity to get a couple of questions in a row, I think you can lead them down a path to be able to get some information. But at the more controlled settings, like at the Woody, when you get one and maybe a follow up, yeah, it's not a Academy type of stuff.
Harbaugh is much more at ease now. I think after winning the Big Ten 2 years in a row, he's not as pensive coming to these things. Now, he did have to dodge the questions about his NCAA violations, which, seems like in this era where they're buying players left and right, to buy a kid a cheeseburger doesn't seem like it's that big of a freaking deal. But, I think that he really was effusive in his praise of J.J. McCarthy. He said he's a generational quarterback, a guy that, you don't get very often, and, really propped him up, I thought. So that was kind of a different thing, I think, for Harbaugh to do. But, and of course, he's got Blake Corum he can talk up as well. And the other running back, Donovan Edwards, who ran for 1,000,000 yards against Ohio State. So I don't know. He's come out of his shell a little bit. And, at the same time, he certainly was having, other than to say he had nothing to be ashamed of, he didn't say anything much about the NCAA situation. So he's a different Jim Harbaugh, I think, than he was maybe 5 years ago, when he was just, he wanted nothing to do with communicating with anybody, it seemed like. So I don't know.
He was more adversarial in the past, but to me, it's exhausting being there and listening to him. I can't do it anymore. Because you're there, you're paying attention, you're trying to learn in terms of everything he's trying to tell you, and it doesn't work for me. And it is, Mark, you are exactly right. It's like these 8-second pauses, and you're like, it's kind of how do you keep an idiot in suspense? We're all there, like, we are the idiots and we are in suspense. And then he just, gives you some coach speak. And I was on the radio yesterday after everything, and they're like, how has it changed over the years? I'm like, well, now you have a whole bunch of head coaches doing their darndest to not say anything at all while being questioned for an hour straight. And some guys, like I think you just talked about Matt Rule. I thought Matt Rule was fantastic. That was my first experience being around him, and he was completely open and would answer whatever you wanted to know, and we like the coaches that will give us a bunch of words that we can then use. And he did that. But I go back to, like, my first one was 2006, where Glenn Mason, after he got done with his thing, sitting around the tables, he went and sat down at somebody else's table, like still wanting to talk some more. And this is, you would never see that these days. I did not get to check out the Northwestern David Braun thing on Wednesday, because he was going at the same time as Ryan Day, so I would have been interested to see what that was. I know the crowd sizes were about the same for those two coaches, which was interesting. But yeah, it's Day. He will give you just enough. Doesn't want to give you too much, but it's stuff that you can work with. So there's at least that. But he doesn't want to give you more than you need.
I thought in the press conference, the Northwestern coach got a question from, I think, a female reporter asking about specific allegations about assistant coaches who are still on the staff who may have been involved in the hazing. And, if anybody's read the stories, they had this thing about getting run. And I don't want to go into what that means, but it was part of the hazing. And the two assistant coaches had maybe messed up one day, and the team voted, and the coaches had to get run. And that was, if they're actively participating in it, then how can they still be on the staff is kind of the overarching question. So this is the gift that's going to keep on giving, I think, all season long, is who did what, who knew what when. The other thing, back on Harbaugh, my buddy John Borton from the Wolverine, with this NCAA thing and everything else that's been hanging over Harbaugh's head, his first question was about the, healthy tailback, or a football question. Like, he made sure, I'm the beat reporter. I don't give a crap about that other stuff. Tell me about your tailback, or whatever the position was. It was like, it was just vintage. I was over there cheering for the guy. Yes, get the football questions in before he completely goes into a shell and says, no, I'm done. I'm out. I'm done. So that was vintage. I thought that's out of the old playbook. It's like, whatever, somebody's got a major problem, whatever. Let's don't start with that. Let's start with an innocuous personnel question, and he took it and ran with it. He was like, a football question? Well, by all means, I'll answer all the football questions you have, whereas in the past, he would have, peered out at you. Oh, we've got tailbacks. We've got wide receivers too, that would have been it.
It's hard not to jump around in this situation and keep the conversation, of course, in order. So I'm going to jump back to Harbaugh and play off something that Tony said in regards to what might have been the most telling response was when he completely did not acknowledge somebody's question. He forgot it. He didn't listen to it when somebody asked him a question. I think about it was about JJ McCarthy. I don't remember exactly, just about his development. And it was a very specific, decent question. And Harbaugh just had, we've all been there in life when we were in a conversation and not listening. And then 90% of the time you can talk your way out of it. You can still act like you were listening, but he got caught and it was like, I don't even know what you're talking. I don't even know what you said. Can you back up? My mind was somewhere else. I was like thinking about something else. So I thought that might be the most telling thing, because that's probably what's going on this entire time, or the majority of this time. He's just able to fake his way through some of it. And thus the 8-second response, or the 8-second delays. We got Ryan Doss here. Appreciate your contributions, sir. So Ryan is asking, and we will start with Kevin, who was your favorite non-Buckeye player, I'm assuming, to interview?
Well, since I'm mostly focused on coaches, there's really only two players, three players that I listened to, and two of them were Ohio State players, and one of them was from that team up north. So by process of elimination, I would have to say Blake Corum because otherwise, the only other players I really listened to were Marvin and Kate Stover. A lot of good stuff from Corum about being healthy, that he just gone to the doctor and is cleared. And then a lot of Michigan reporters are like, now, are you officially cleared? And he's like, well, I think I am. I guess maybe I need to go have another conversation. Was talked about moving the Michigan game, the Michigan Ohio State game, and he's like, I'll play it whenever. Well, what if it's back to back? I don't care about that. I'm going to come out and play as hard in the first one as I am in the second one. Somebody who seems really appreciative to have another opportunity to be able to get out there and have another season of college football, especially as a hot button issue in terms of the NFL right now is running back pay, as the pendulum has moved back in the other direction, where we thought we were going to see running backs becoming back in vogue with where Bijan Robinson went and guys like that. And now guys that have been in the league for a while are just not happy with where their pay is. That doesn't seem to be a case for Blake Corum, who seems to be doing good with his money right now.
I like Chris Ottman-Bell from Minnesota. He jumped right in and defended PJ Fleck and sounded genuine about it. Like, yeah, this isn't for everybody. And said that Fleck's done so much for him. He's in like his fifth or sixth year at Minnesota, and he jumped right in and with both feet. And as you'd expect, I mean, he's one of the leaders of the team, and they bring him to Chicago or to Indianapolis, and he's not coming there to throw the coach under the bus, certainly. So I guess, if the only people who were quoted in the initial article by Front Office Sports were disgruntled people, then we need to listen to the other side too, I guess. And I was impressed with his defense of PJ Fleck.
Yeah, that was one that I talked with her, was there for a little bit as well. And this is his seventh year. He's a seventh-year senior at Minnesota, and he was originally committed to Fleck at Western Michigan. And so I guess when Fleck left Western Michigan for Minnesota, one of the questions was, when did you buy in with PJ Fleck? He's like, I bought in with him immediately, when he was going to go to Western Michigan. And then when Fleck left for Minnesota, he's like, then I bought out for a little bit. But then PJ and then Coach Fleck gave me a call back, and I bought in again. And yeah, he was very not defensive, but he defended his head coach. I was talking with the three transfer quarterbacks that were there on Thursday: Hudson Card of Purdue, Tanner Mordecai at Wisconsin, and Nebraska's quarterback, who is named Jeff, just slips me right now. Yeah, Jeff Sims. Thank you. Just asking them about what life is like in the portal and that whole experience. How much are you getting blown up and things like that, and how much are you checking and refreshing? And Jeff Sims says it can be kind of scary in there because you don't know what you're necessarily getting into. Whereas Tanner Mordecai said you have to go in with a plan. And I'm like, how do you go in with a plan? Necessarily, unless you know where you want to go. And it sounds like some guys go in knowing where they want to go. And I'm not going to throw any shenanigans in there, but I think we all know there are back channels in there. And I think the best advice, maybe have the back channels before you go in. So those three guys, just talking about what life is like and the decision to move on and what you're looking for. And all three of them seem to have found exactly what they're looking for. So it'll be interesting to watch how they do in the Big Ten West this year.
I probably gained the most from Talia Tagovailoa just because everybody left, and I just stood there in front of the table and just did a one-on-one with him, basically. And
there was nobody there when I saw him.
Yeah,
like he was talking to SIDs basically.
Yeah,
when I was
surprised the Maryland beat didn't show up. There was really nobody on the Maryland beat there.
Well, this is the problem when it's not held in Chicago. It's two flights for those people to get. There's no really. I mean, there's probably not a lot of directs. No, there's probably Southwest probably has directs from Baltimore to from BWI to Indianapolis as I think about it, but they're not prevalent. You know, there's like one a day or two a day or something. So I don't know. To me, it's like going to Minneapolis for this basketball tournament. I think Delta runs some directs from Columbus to Minneapolis, but they're few and far between. So, and they're probably more expensive. So people look at the cost value of going. I mean, we have TV stations from Columbus. They don't pay for a hotel for their people. They get up at 5 a.m. They drive out, they cover it, and when the 6 o'clock news is off the air, they get in the car and they drive back. And those are the TV stations. The network television stations in Columbus do not come and staff it and stay overnight. So that just tells you, you know, what people value this thing at right now.